Before we get into today's video, I just want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you all have had a wonderful week. Hope everybody's feeling good. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about a man named Jerry, and we're going to be talking about wrongful convictions. And not just wrongful convictions, but wrongful convictions that are linked to people who actually confess to things that they did not actually do. Before we go any further, I did want to stop and thank today's sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service that delivers fresh and quality ingredients from the farm to your front door in less than a week. And HelloFresh meals can easily be customized to fit your family's taste. And with protein and veggie swap options, you and the kids can choose just the right combos for each week's deliveries. And now that we are in full back to school mode, we've got shopping, after school activities, and just a lot less free time. Now, I don't know about y'all and y'all's schedule, but I know for us personally, we've got football practice 3 to 4 nights a week. My son's got youth service on one night, and it's just like during the weekday evenings, there's just always something to do. But HelloFresh's easy to follow recipes include pre-portioned ingredients delivered fresh so that no last minute grocery runs are needed, and also I'm not hitting the drive-thrus 5 nights a week. I can feed my family meals that I feel good about and that they love too. And with a changing menu of 50 different recipes to choose from every single week, HelloFresh makes it easy to always find something that the whole family will enjoy. And you guys, for a limited time, and I highly suggest jumping on this, kids eat free. All you gotta do is go to HelloFresh.com and use code ChristinaRandallKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com and using my code ChristinaRandallKids to save today. Thanks again, HelloFresh. So I'm gonna do like I typically do. I'm gonna tell you guys a story for the best of my ability with the public information that is already out there. I will tell y'all at the end of this story, there is a bit of a twist. Like it goes in a different direction, and we're gonna talk about it. Make sure you stay to the end if you want to know my opinion. Other than that, today we are going to be talking about the case of Jerry Hobbs and his daughter Laura and her best friend Krystal. Before we do though, I want to talk to you guys about wrongful convictions. Now, some of y'all that know Jerry and his story, you may know that after 5 years, Jerry was released after his confession was deemed coerced and new DNA evidence basically just exonerated him. But how do wrongful convictions even happen in the first place? Well, according to the National Insititute of Justice, in general, a conviction may be classified as wrongful for 2 reasons. 1, the person that is convicted is factually innocent of the charges, which would be the most obvious one. And then 2, there were procedural errors that violated the convicted person's rights, okay? And then, of course, a wrongful conviction based on possible factual innocence can sometimes be detected by using post-conviction DNA testing, like we will be talking about in today's case. Now, post-conviction DNA testing is a major factor contributing to the increased discovery of wrongful convictions with like the new advancement in DNA testing over the past couple decades. Biological evidence retained in cases from like the pre-DNA era can now be tested. In addition, advancements in DNA technology have really broadened over the years. And I'll give you guys an example. Say that professionals collected DNA evidence 30 years ago. Well, they tested it and it comes back inconclusive. They can't figure out necessarily the results. Well, they save this DNA evidence, and as technology has continued to progress, They go back and retest it, and then they're able to match it with a person. Now, as for false confessions, and like me and probably most of y'all think I would never, ever, ever in a million years confess to something that I did not do. However, according to the Innocence Project, false confessions are a lot more common than me or you would probably think. And it comes from what is said to be a variety of different factors, including the use of deceptive tactics during interrogation. And when I was researching this, I found a lot of information that said that it is just hard to understand why people technically confess to things that they did not do. However, the research shows that false confessions can take place due to law enforcement use of intimidation, use of excessive force, coercive tactics, isolation during the interrogation process, a bunch of different deceptive methods that include lying about evidence, and a whole lot more. An innocent person may actually falsely confess because of increased stress, mental exhaustion, promises of lenient sentences, like if you just say that you did this, we know you did. If you just say that after a person's been awake for 48 hours, hasn't eaten, hasn't slept, hasn't had anything to drink, they believe their family is against them, and they say if you just do this, you're not gonna get in much trouble, and the person thinks, okay, I'm gonna be able to get out and fix this. And not to mention the fact that people that are younger have mental disabilities, language barriers, and different factors like that can make certain groups of people particularly vulnerable due to this lack of comprehension. On average, people who falsely confessed were interrogated for up to 16 hours before admitting to a crime that they did not do. And in some cases, people were convicted of crimes that they falsely confessed to, even though DNA evidence that was collected at these crime scenes did not match the person that was confessing. Some of the most famous wrongful conviction cases are, and I think most of us have heard about this, and if you have not, there are plenty of documentaries out there, the Central Park Five. This was where 5 juveniles were wrongfully convicted and spent between 5 to 15 years in prison for a crime that they did not commit. Leon Brown and Henry McCollum, at 19 and 15, they were convicted in 1983 and not let out of prison until 2015. And also Stephen Avery. Now there's still a lot of back and forth. Some people still really think he was guilty. But if you remember, there was a very popular Netflix documentary that highlighted his story. He ended up being exonerated in this one case, but he's still in prison for another case. He has an infamous lawyer named Kathleen Zellner, and she's still fighting for him to this day. Now, keep her name in mind because she comes up in today's case as well. This brings us full circle back around to Jerry Hobbs' case. Jerry Branton Hobbs III was born in 1970, and he was living in Zion, Illinois. Zion is a little small town that is not far from the Wisconsin border. It was founded in 1901 by a religious faith leader as a utopian community. Throughout a rocky 10-year relationship, Jerry had 3 children with a woman named Sheila. Jerry IV, Laura, and Jeremy. Now, they ended up breaking up because Sheila said that she could not deal with Jerry's rage anymore. Jerry had a long criminal history dating all the way back to 1990, where he was arrested 29 different times. Now, in my research, I believe that Jerry had a substance issue most of his life, okay? Most of his charges were substance related, and they did include some one time, back in 2001, Jerry and Sheila were arguing so bad that he ended up going and grabbing a chainsaw and chasing the neighbors through the trailer park where they lived with this chainsaw. And he had to be hit in the back of the head with a shovel to be stopped. I could just see this whole trailer park drama, y'all. You got Jerry with this chainsaw, running, and somebody donk hitting him in the back of the head with a chainsaw and him falling over. Now, Jerry did end up spending 18 months in prison for this, so this was not no little thing that went over in the trailer park. After his release, Sheila let Jerry move back in with her and her parents and their children. She wanted to give their relationship another chance, and Jerry seemed much better, and he had been working like these little odd jobs doing things like landscaping, and he was also a cook at IHOP. This brings us to May 8th of 2005. This was actually Mother's Day, and it was just a month after Jerry's release from prison. He was 34 years old at this time. Jerry and Sheila's 8-year-old daughter, Laura, had left the house to go play with her 9-year-old best friend, Krystal. Now, these girls were known to be very sweet, and they were together all the time. They were inseparable best friends. Everything seemed totally normal until Laura had not come home after it had already gotten dark. Now, the rule was to make sure that she was always home from playing before dark. Everyone became worried. They were even more worried when they found out that Krystal hadn't gone home either, so neither one of them had returned home. So both of the girls were reported missing that evening at around 9 p.m. Both families and their friends went out to look for them. Police and search and rescue dogs were all out looking too. They searched all night long, but they still could not find them. You can imagine everybody was worried and concerned. This was definitely not like them. The following day, on May 9th, Jerry was searching a nearby Beulah Park when he found one of the girls' bikes. After Jerry found one of the girls' bikes, he continued to look around in that area, and this is when Jerry found Laura and Krystal deceased, lying face up in a grassy open area. They were laying about 2 to 3 feet apart from each other with their shoes placed next to them. Laura had been stabbed 20 times and Krystal 11 times. Laura had damage to her eyes. Her eyes, I think, were literally removed. And Krystal had been taken advantage of, but this wasn't known about at the time, but it would be confirmed by DNA much later. Now, obviously, because Jerry was the one that found them, he was brought in for questioning so they could find out every little detail. However, the officer felt like Jerry already knew that they were there. So when Jerry was leading the officers to where they were at, he just had this feeling like, yeah, he's done this before. He's been here before. He knew exactly where they were. In the interrogation room, there was no window and there was no clock, which is pretty typical. However, Jerry was not told that he was under arrest or that he was even being detained. He had no idea that he was being questioned as a suspect. He thought he was just coming in to answer questions about how he found the two of them. However, he ended up being held for 24 hours and he was interrogated 10 separate times by 4 different officers. Now, keep in mind, Jerry had barely slept the night before because he was out all night searching for Laura and Krystal. So in between rounds of interrogation, he would lay on the floor and try to take a nap. He was completely exhausted and totally out of it. Jerry said that he ended up asking for a lawyer multiple times and he was never given one. Now, all of the following information about the interrogation is alleged by Jerry in court documents. Jerry said that one of the officers asked him to sign a form that they told him was just to confirm that they were allowed to ask Jerry questions. So Jerry signed it. In reality, though, it was a Miranda rights waiver form. Jerry literally waived his Miranda rights without even knowing that he was doing it. You know the whole spiel about you can have an attorney present, you don't have to speak to the officers. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed. They didn't even have to say any of that because they got him to sign that waiver. The officers were already assuming that Jerry had lost his temper with the girls and that they believed that he did this to them in like some sort of fit of rage, even though Jerry was saying that he hadn't. Yet Jerry said that these officers were continuously telling him all these gruesome details of how the girls were like found, and they kept showing him pictures of their bodies. And when Jerry tried to look away, an officer allegedly threw him on the ground and asked him How did their neck feel when you cut it? These officers also told Jerry that they had physical evidence against him, and they had an eyewitness that basically either saw him or saw him with them. They even told Jerry that they had a voice stress analysis test that they wanted him to take to see if he was lying. Now, it's kind of like a polygraph test, but even less reliable because it just goes by your voice. They told Jerry that if he passed this test, that he could go home. So they ended up having Jerry take this test 4 separate times. They told him that he failed each one of them, which makes absolutely no sense, because if he would have failed it the first time, or the second time, or the third time, they probably wouldn't have done it a 4th time, right? At this point, Jerry was still insisting that he was innocent. So the officers took him to an interrogation room with a camera. They told Jerry that they wanted to do a light test that would reveal evidence in his person. When they were shining this light on Jerry, they said that they found a spot on his pants. Jerry told them that it was probably from him rubbing his nose on his pants when he was crying. Even with all of that, they had Jerry change into this see-through paper clothes so they could take his clothes and supposedly have them tested further. The officers then told Jerry that his clothes gave them even more evidence against him. Then these officers started telling Jerry that his own family was even convinced that he was the one that did this, and they all hated him. As badly as all of this hurt Jerry, he was still refusing to give a confession. So the officers got annoyed, and they told Jerry that there was an officer just outside the room who was not happy about what had happened to the girls. And they were saying, Jerry, I'm telling you, you don't want this officer to come in. We've been trying to hold him back. He's just on the outside of that door. And I'm telling you, if you don't just go ahead and confess, he's going to come in. When Jerry still did not confess and still said, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do this. The officers left the room. After the officers left the room, a very large officer came into the room. And when Jerry still refused to confess, this is when the officer, according to Jerry, began to punch him in the side of his head. Jerry said that the officer slammed his head down and also slammed him into a wall. After 24 hours of being interrogated, nearly 48 hours with no sleep. And mind you, I have chills thinking about it. This man was out searching for them. He was the one to find them, face up, in that position. So that alone is earth-shattering. And then to go and be put in this situation. In 48 hours, they would not let him sleep. When he tried to fall asleep and take a nap, they kept coming in, waking him up. Finally, Jerry told the investigators that he was ready to confess, but that he needed to tell a judge directly. He was hoping that he could reason with a judge instead of these officers because he wasn't getting through to them. He hoped that a judge would see that he was being forced into confessing. The officers told Jerry that he could either write it down or that they would type it up for him, but Jerry refused. So one officer wrote up a statement for Jerry and asked Jerry to sign it. Jerry went ahead and signed it out of fear and thinking that he could fix it later. After signing this confession, Jerry was given a county jail uniform to wear, and then he was taken back to the crime scene. The officers asked Jerry to show them where the weapon was that was used in this incident, and Jerry said that he did not know where the weapon was because he's not the one that did this. Allegedly, one of the officers right then and there at the crime scene began to punch him again. Then on May 10th, which was the following day, prosecutors met with the officers that conducted this interrogation to see what evidence that they had. These officers told the prosecutors that they did not have any notes or they didn't have any videos of the confession. They just had this signed written confession. The prosecutor told the officers that they had to have evidence that Jerry's confession actually happened before they could proceed with these charges. This meant that the officers needed to go back and get an actual video confession of Jerry. So they brought Jerry back from the jail and they put him in this larger room where he was placed in front of a camera. They told him that he needed to read his confession. Jerry initially refused and said that it was a bunch of lies. He's like, I'm not going to read this and say this. None of this is true. According to Jerry, this is when one of the officers punched him in the head. He says then that one of the officers told another officer to go get Sheila because they were going to charge her as well. This is when Jerry agreed. He had been through all of this over the past now 72 hours, still cannot even process what he walked up on and saw, the image that he saw. And then now they're saying that they're going to go and get Sheila, the woman that he's been with all these years, all the ups and downs, and that also has his other 2 kids at this point. This is when Jerry just agreed, and he said he was going to read the confession because he did not want Sheila to get arrested or go through any of the stuff that he had just went through. An officer then went over and reset the tape and had Jerry start over. Jerry then read the statement a second time.
My name is Detective Schletz with the Lake County Major Crime Task Force. I'm here on 5/10/05 at approximately 14:06 hours. I'm with Detective Harris, and I'm also with Jerry Hobbs. We're at the Zion Police Department. I am asking Jerry consent to read, electronically record him while he reads his statement. Jerry has agreed to read his statement. Jerry Hobbs, is that your name?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is case 05-5747, Lake County Major Crime Task Force case. Jerry, is this a consent for electronic recording that you gave me earlier?
Yes, sir.
Just a couple minutes ago?
Yes, sir.
And you wrote your name down? And is this your signature giving me consent to record this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and myself and Detective Harris witnessed this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is this the form that we read to you and showed you? And we read all your rights?
Yes, sir.
Is this your signature on the form that these are all the rights you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're aware of your rights, and you agreed to speak with me and Detective Harris about this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, at the bottom of this page on the right-hand side, is this your signature?
Yes, sir.
Saying that you have received these rights and you understand them? Okay. And that was given voluntarily?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to read the statement electronically for us while being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay, can you read that out loud and please be clear and just start from right here?
On May 8, 2005, Sunday about 3 p.m., I got home with my wife Sheila and her 4 kids from flying kites at the lake. My daughter asked if she could go out and play with her friends. Sheila said it was okay even though she was still grounded after stealing Sheila's $40. I didn't agree with letting her go, but I didn't say anything at the time. At about 4:30 p.m., I decided to check on Laura and bring her home. I walked by myself from my house to the park into the trail, where my son Jerry said Laura hangs out. I was walking on the dirt trail and I ran into Laura and her friends Krystal on the trail. I told Laura that she had to come home and she argued with me and I grabbed her by the arm. She tried pulling away and was telling me to let her go. Krystal also told me to let Laura go. Krystal pulled out a small knife from her pocket and again told me to let Laura go. Laura was fighting me and I punched her in the face as she dropped to the ground. Krystal came towards me and I took the knife from her and I punched her in the face as she went down. And then went in a rage and stabbed Krystal in the chest and neck. I was towards her. She stopped moving and I went over to Laura and she was moving around and fighting me. I punched her in the face again and stabbed her in the back and neck and I also stabbed her in the face by the eye.
Jerry, why don't you take a second and just take a breath. Okay.
It all happened so fast. When she was moving around, I think I stabbed Krystal 6 times in the lower pit. When I stopped moving, I pulled Krystal lower about 30 feet away from the trail until I grasped that she was next to her body. So I went back on the dirt trail and threw a knife as far as I could towards the park area to sunrise. The knife was a pointy brown wooden handle, potato knife. About 46 inches long. Then I walked back home and washed up my hands in the bathroom sink. I was wearing all the clothes I have on now. On Monday morning, I took art where the girls' bodies were, and they were just how I left them, except they were swollen up. I'm sorry for my things just got out of hand and I lost it. I was just trying to be a father and take control of my children. I wanted to cooperate and help the detectives. They have given me and treated me well. And have been made to me.
Okay. Is this your statement, Jerry?
Yeah, that's it.
Was this given free voluntarily?
Yes.
Okay.
It is so sad watching that. And he's so emotional, and so some people could take it as him being emotional for like what he did. But when you find out what all had really happened, it's just heartbreaking. Now, allegedly, the prosecutor watched both videos and knew that Jerry had been threatened and punched in the head first. They would later go on to not even disclose the existence of the first video to anyone, including Jerry's lawyers, which is unreal. Jerry was then formally arrested at 4:30 p.m. on May 10th and read his actual Miranda rights. He was charged with 2 counts of murder. While Jerry was being booked into the jail, a guard overheard a conversation between one of the officers and Jerry, where Jerry was still denying doing this to the girls. This guard, who obviously had some integrity, thank the Lord, out of everybody that we've just about talked about so far, heard this conversation, and he went and wrote a report stating what he had heard. He also said that Jerry told him that the officers told him to lie, and that's why he did. Now, clearly, the guard knew that something was not right. However, Jerry was still denied bail, and he was kept in isolation in the jail. He was never given a cellmate or allowed to even interact with any of the other inmates. And you can imagine, too, what Sheila and the family thought. When the officers come to them and say, hey, he confessed to this. We've got him on video. Look at the video. Like, what? His other 2 children too, like hearing that their father confessed to this? The best friend's family? I mean, oh my gosh. An internal memo from May 18th of 2005 would later come out that instructed officers to keep Jerry in isolation due to the high profile nature of this case, and that they wanted to keep him like away from any lawyers. Jerry was not allowed to use the jail's law library either. I mean, he was basically stripped from every right. Jerry was also not allowed to go to his own daughter's funeral. He did, however, get the opportunity to speak to his mother at some point. And according to his mother, Joanne, the first thing that Jerry told her was, Mama, they broke me. In August of 2006, just over a year later, a hearing was held to suppress Jerry's confession. All of the officers involved got on the stand and testified that Jerry's confession was voluntary and that Jerry had never even requested a lawyer during his interrogation. Jerry was still too afraid of the larger officer that had threatened to kill him, so he didn't testify at this hearing. Even Jerry's own lawyer advised him not to because it was just unsafe. Now, during the autopsies of Laura and Krystal, the medical examiner took like a bunch of swabs all over the bodies. They swabbed them to preserve any potential DNA evidence. This lab was under the direction of the state attorney's office and the officers that did the interrogation. Now, ultimately, DNA tests were not performed on these swabs, which is wild. The only test that was done by this lab was a microscopic one, which failed to reveal the presence of sperm. At some point, a motion from Jerry's lawyer was granted and the swabs were delivered to a different facility for testing. So in August of 2007, this lab reported that there was indeed the presence of semen on these swabs that was taken from Laura. It was found inside her and on her skirt and on her hands. So there was a presence of this type of DNA all over the place. When they tested this DNA, Jerry was ruled out as a source and a single male was determined to be the source of it. So right then and there is no excuse, no reason in the world that any male's DNA of that nature should be on any youngin'. Okay? So that right there should have been like, whoa, halting everything. What is going on here? But because of this, Jerry's lawyers asked, obviously, for a new bond hearing. The hearing was held in December of 2008, and his motion was denied. The state refused to dismiss the charges against Jerry, even though there was no physical evidence linking him to the murders of the girls, and now there was new evidence that was linking someone else to it. Jerry remained in custody in the jail for 3 more years. He never went to trial. He was never convicted. Then, on June 24th of 2010, a search of the National Offenders Database showed a match between the DNA found on Laura and the DNA profile of a man named Jorge Torres. Jorge was a former resident of Zion and a friend of Krystal's brother. So he was 16 years old at the time. Imagine this. Krystal has an older brother. Older brother has got a buddy around his age. They're in high school. That's who it was. That's who matched the DNA at the crime scene. Jorge was in the database because he had actually been arrested and charged with several SA charges in Virginia. As a matter of fact, after Jerry was arrested and put through all this stuff and kept in isolation in the jail, Jorge, who was a teenager, continued to go on to high school. He went on to graduate. He was still around the family, Krystal's brother. You guys. But while they got Jerry in jail through all of this, and again, he's the one that had to find his daughter and her best friend, the first one to set eyes on them in that way, and then everything else he had been through, probably lost his family, everything. Jorge's off doing all the things he's doing. He was later charged and convicted of those SA charges, and he was also convicted of an attempted murder of a woman that he had R-worded. He would also later go on to be charged with another murder of a 20-year-old young woman named Amanda. So while they're over there doing this to Jerry, this is why it is so important that our justice system tries their best not to wrongfully convict somebody. It's not even just about that person's life. It's about the person that you allow to stay free and the destruction that they continue to cause on all communities like Jorge did. Now, because of this, Jerry was finally released from custody in August of 2010 after spending 1,912 days in jail, in a terrible 1,900 days in jail, on top of it being jail. Now, even after all of that, the state attorney told the press that he was not convinced that Jerry did not have a role in the crime.
This morning, the case against Jerry Hobbs was dismissed on the motion of the state's attorney. On May 8, 2005, the Zion Police Department and the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force began an investigation into the brutal murders of Laura Hobbs and Krystal Tobias. Early in that investigation, the evidence pointed to Jerry Hobbs. His behavior and other evidence raised red flags and pointed to his involvement. Jerry Hobbs made a verbal confession, he signed a typed statement, and he made a videotaped confession. He took the police to Beulah Park to search for the murder weapon. Based upon evidence in those confessions, Jerry Hobbs was charged with the murders of Laura Hobbs and Krystal Tobias. And another important fact to keep in mind in analyzing this case, that in 2005, there was no evidence based upon the report of the Lake County Coroner and the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsies on the girls. There was no evidence that either girl was sexually assaulted. 2 years ago, a small amount of DNA was found in and on the body of Laura Hobbs. The source of that DNA was not Jerry Hobbs. The DNA profile was placed in state and federal databases through our efforts and at our request, our being the State Attorney's Office and law enforcement. On June 25th of this year, a match was made to another individual. We immediately investigated the background of that individual. Based upon the information that we learned, we mobilized the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force and the Zion Police Department, and we launched on June 25th and June 26th a multi-state investigation into the new information. The duty of the state's attorney is set out in the Illinois Code of Professional Conduct, which provides the duty is not merely to convict, but to seek justice. And we don't, in the Lake County State's Attorney's Office, prosecute defendants unless we believe we can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Based upon this new evidence developed, I do not believe we can prove the case against Jerry Hobbs beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is the basis of today's motion to dismiss the case. Criminal investigations are based on evidence and a search for the truth. That search does not end when a particular individual is charged. Good faith decisions were originally made in this case charging Jerry Hobbs based upon evidence that pointed to him. New evidence now points to another individual. The investigation into the brutal murders of Laura Hobbs and Krystal Tobias continues. The Zion Police Department and Lake County Major Crimes Task Force are investigating the case in light of this new evidence, with the goal of bringing charges against the individual responsible for the murders.
And just to throw this little tidbit out there too, in the research that I found, when you research Jerry Hobbs, even the articles that have been wrote up most recently are kind of worded like it was unsure if he did it or not. It was the man that was convicted of and then he was released because DNA, the way that it's worded is just, it makes it seem like it could still be him, but whoops, we had to let him out for some reason. It is so gross. But to continue on here, on December 1st of 2010, Jerry went on to file a lawsuit against the interrogating officers, against the prosecutor, and several other agencies. This is when Kathleen Zellner, the infamous lawyer in the Stephen Avery case, came into the picture. She represented Jerry in his lawsuit. Now, Jerry went on to give a press conference when news of his lawsuit was made public.
Okay.
Just say it out.
Okay. I'm doing this case because they was wrong. They knew they were wrong. And they kept going with it and didn't stop. The DNA came out in 2008. They didn't give them a bond. They just kept going forward with it. It took a lot of work to even get them to even run the DNA test through the national database. And when we got the DNA ran through and it came out a hit, they still kept me for 2 more weeks. And when they hit on somebody in another state, they still kept me for 2 more weeks in that jail.
May we ask a question?
You sure that?
So you were aware the entire time from 2008 on that there might be DNA that could clear you?
There wasn't no might. They had it. The prosecutor came up in the courtroom. We all came up, and there was on the bodies, in them, on them, around them, and it didn't match me, and they still were trying to charge me.
Jerry, why do you think this happened? Was it malicious? Was it just that they zeroed in on the suspect from the beginning and wanted to change their viewpoint, or what happened?
I'll tell you what I think happened is they were just looking for somebody. They didn't care who they had, and they had me at the time. They had me in that room, and once they had me in the room, they weren't going to let me go.
How soon did you realize that they were looking at you?
And it's hard to say, because you understand, I just found one of my children. And then after that, they took me 30 minutes after, and they started terrorizing me.
What do you mean by that, terrorizing you?
They do what they just, I mean, I can't get into details, I guess, but once they got me, they wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't let. I asked for a lawyer twice. I tried to walk out. They wouldn't let me walk out, and they just focused in on me.
All the while you're grieving, you know,
Yes,
or not even probably at that point.
Right. I wasn't even myself.
How long did it go on, and were you allowed to sleep?
No, sir, I wasn't. It went on for almost 24 hours.
According to the complaint, one of these officers who's interrogating you, I think it may have been Officer Jones, you know, it says in the complaint that he actually hit you. He knocked you down.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
Again, can you just kind of describe that?
There was a couple of them that laid their hands on me. Yes.
What did they
Because
say?
in their mind, they said they thought that I did it.
Do you remember the moment that you thought, I'm just going to confess to, and what went through your mind at that point?
I was just trying to get out. I was a broke man. I was a broke man, and I just gave them what they wanted. You know, like I said, I asked for a lawyer twice, and I tried to leave, and they wouldn't let me. So I just gave them what they wanted.
Do you still think about Laura?
All the time, every day. It's not as hard as it was then, but I think about her every day. What kind of lady she would have been now.
Some people out there say, look, I just can't understand how anyone could ever confess to doing something they didn't do.
It's hard, like I said, it's hard when you just find one of your kids, my daughter, and you're not mentally prepared for it. But it just them kind of things just don't happen to just anybody.
You know, it goes back to arguably the worst couple days of your life, and enduring that is one thing. How did you get through the next 5 years?
It's day by day. It's hard to. I mean, it was real.
Did you think while you were in jail? Did you keep hoping that?
That's all I had left.
Did you fear that you'd never get out?
Oh yeah, I was always there.
Jerry was indeed awarded $7.5 million in February of 2014. Jorge, the real perpetrator in this situation, ended up pleading guilty to the crimes against Laura and Krystal, and he is spending the rest of his life in prison. Now, after Jerry was exonerated, there were 4 other cases where it was shown that DNA evidence indicating innocence was ignored by this state's attorney at the time. In total, 5 men spent 80 combined years behind bars. Why are we not seeing this person arrested? It's just mind-blowing to me. Like some people are so hungry to get that conviction so they can make themselves look better, because that's really what it's about. It's not about protecting the community or serving justice or giving closure to the families. It's about them, that so many lives were uprooted. Sadly, in my opinion, Jerry never recovered from it. He started rough from the start, and even though he got that $7.5 million, you would think and hope that he would take it and turn around and make his life better. But he went on to be arrested a few more times after being released, and he has since passed away. He had a substance problem, and he was arrested multiple times for substance issues. But when I was reading it, it seemed like, and I don't know the full story, I wasn't there, but it seemed like he was being picked on a little bit. Because one time he was stopped and arrested for riding his bike across a crosswalk without a light on it. It's just like, okay, I don't know, was there a traffic jam because of it? Because then maybe so, but like if you just got a man that's just trying to get from point A to point B and his light is out on his bike and you're pulling him over and then you're arresting, it kind of seemed like they were on him after this. I'm telling you what, these people that get out from these wrongful convictions and they get money, okay, and they're able to turn their lives around and do good in the world, that is a miracle, a true miracle. They should all be applauded in the biggest way possible. And I think that as a community, We do a good job at that for the people that we know about, right? But what's not talked about is the people that don't make it over that hump, like Jerry's situation. What he went through, being in isolation for that long of a period of time, man, does a number on you. And then you get out and there's a lot of people that still don't believe you, and you already struggle with addiction, and somebody hands over a large check of money to you, and boy, you're off to the races. That large money like that is dangerous in some situations, and everything he had been through, he didn't make it. He didn't make it. He ended up passing away. I'm going to read this comment that I saw on a video from somebody who says that they are Jerry's sibling. I can't confirm for sure, but I'm going to read it nonetheless. It says, Jerry was my big brother. This was not the end of his tragic story. They did break him. He was in and out of jail, mainly due to drug charges. He never hurt anybody. He only hurt himself. He was in jail and he suffered a stroke. The correctional officers ignored his plea for help. He called our mom for help, and it was after his second stroke that the correctional officers finally took him to the hospital. By the time he got to the hospital, he had had 4 strokes. He was in a vegetative state and he passed a week later. The system broke him. I held his hand and read to him while he was dying in our arms. The system broke him. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Other than that, I love you. Thank you all for watching this video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Love you guys. Bye.